Imagine you're broadcasting on one radio station, but your audience is tuned into a different one. You can talk all day, but if they're not on your frequency, they'll only hear noise. Good marketing relies on knowing how to reach your audience's frequency. In this episode of Brand for Good, I'm sharing why perspective is the key to marketing that actually connects and how to find the frequency your audience is already listening to. Welcome to Brand for Good, the show for purpose-driven leaders who want to build timeless brands and create sustainable impact. I'm Lorraine Sugart, former PR and marketing executive turned founder of the disruptive agency Prosper for Purpose. I've worked with some of the world's most beloved brands, and I'm here to help you elevate your brand identity, visibility, influence, and impact. Are you ready to brand for good? Let's go. Welcome back to Brand for Good. I'm your host, Lorraine Sugart. Today we're talking about a deceptively simple word, perspective, and how it shapes not just our worldviews, but our work as we market our products and services. When I talk about perspective, I think of a conversation I had with my daughters when they were little. They had started to notice that people didn't always see things the same way that they did. One day, one of them asked, "Why does she think that's okay when I don't?" It was one of those moments where parenting became philosophy, so I reached for a metaphor. I said, "Imagine I gave each of you a pair of sunglasses. One pair has pink lenses, the other green. If you both looked at the same white wall and I asked you to describe it, one of you would say it was light pink, the other would say it was a shade of green. And if you didn't know you were wearing sunglasses, you would probably argue about who was right. But really, you would just be seeing through different lenses." They got it. And it's a metaphor I still use to this day, not just in conversations about life, but in my work as a brand strategist and storyteller. And that's because perspective isn't just a personal concept. It's foundational to how we communicate. And to build a successful business, you have to understand the lenses your audience is wearing and speak through them. Here's where this gets practical. We often create marketing from our viewpoint, our beliefs, our values, what we know to be true. And while this is very important, it's only half the equation. Your message just doesn't land because it's true. It lands when it resonates. And resonance only happens when we account for the other person's perspective. That's why some campaigns fall flat. Not because the offer is wrong, but because the message didn't match the mindset. Here's an example. Say you're marketing a wellness program. Your perspective might be, this is going to transform your life. But your audience? One person might see it as a threat to their routine. Another might think it sounds just too good to be true. Someone else may be craving exactly what you offer, but they don't trust their ability to follow through. Each of these perspectives requires a different message, not a different product, just a different approach to communication. That's why market research, empathy, and storytelling matter. You're not changing your truth, you're just adjusting your light so it shines through their lenses too. And sometimes it's about helping your audience take off their glasses for a moment to see something new. I worked with a nonprofit that wanted to highlight their impact using numbers, which is pretty typical. But the audience had grown weary of numbers. They didn't feel them. So we switched to stories, real people, real transformation. That's when the messages started landing. It wasn't the message that changed, it was the perspective. Another client insisted they had the best service in their category, but let's face it, every competitor was saying the same thing. So we dug a little deeper and realized they had a distinct process that made their clients feel seen and supported. And that became the new focus. It helped sales increase not because we shouted louder, but because we spoke to the lens their audience was already looking through. Perspective isn't a barrier, it's a bridge. The most powerful brands are not those that insist on their view being right. They're the ones that understand how to speak to the views of others, to empathize, adapt, and illuminate. So before your next campaign, launch, or pitch, ask yourself, what lens is my audience wearing? There's probably a few. What experiences or emotions color the way they'll hear this? And how can I meet them where they are before inviting them to where I want them to go? Here are 5 ways that you can do that. The first one is listen before you speak. Read the comments on your posts. Check the reviews for similar products or services. Watch what people complain about. Frustration often reveals unmet needs. The next one is to ask better questions. Whether you're on a discovery call, you're running a survey, or you're interviewing a customer, don't just ask what they want. Ask what they're afraid of. What have they tried before that didn't work? What almost convinced them but didn't? Their answers are clues to the filters they carry. The third one is to use empathy mapping. If you've never done one, it's a simple tool that walks you through what your audience is thinking, feeling, hearing, and seeing. It's not just demographic data, it's emotional data. And that's where connection happens. The fourth one is to find the gap between what they say and what they do. People might say they want something convenient, but choose something expensive because it makes them feel in control. Look for behavior patterns over buzzwords. And the last one is to test messages across segments. Sometimes the best insights come from seeing what doesn't work. Try different headlines or messages for different groups of people and track which one gets traction. Data, when used wisely, reveals perspective. Now, if you really want to gain clarity, talk to former clients, lost leads, and even people who said no. Ask why. Their responses may surprise you, and perhaps they'll even teach you the most. So let's go back to the sunglasses for a minute. Marketing isn't about convincing people that your lens is better. It's about acknowledging their lens first, meeting them where they are, then maybe inviting them to try on a new pair. Perspective doesn't change the truth. It changes how the truth is received. So here's your takeaway for today's episode. Great marketers don't just deliver messages. They design experiences that feel personal because they've taken the time to understand perspective. Before your next launch, post, or pitch, ask yourself, what might my audience believe that's different from me? Where are they struggling? And what are they struggling to make sense of? And what fear, hope, or desire might be tinting their view? And then incorporate that into your positioning of your offer. So I'm going to give you a challenge for this week. Try to have one conversation where you only ask questions. Get curious. Listen without jumping in. Try to see through someone else's lenses. And then, when you return to your own work, let that insight guide you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Brand for Good. If it gave you a new way to think about messaging and marketing, would you share it with someone else who could benefit from this episode? I would really appreciate it, and so would they. And until next time, lead with empathy, market with clarity, and keep on building your brand for good. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Brand for Good show. If you like what you heard, please hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and leave a review so other purpose-driven leaders can find this valuable content. To learn more about building a brand for good, please visit prosperforpurpose.com for more resources and information on all the ways you can work with us.